The first gunshot split the dawn like thunder, jerking Sheriff Elijah Blackwood from his whiskey-induced slumber. His head throbbed, a familiar punishment for seeking solace in the bottle. His hand instinctively reached for the Colt revolver beside his bed as the second shot echoed across the plains, reverberating through the weathered walls of his small cabin. Trouble had found Clearwater again. Elijah's joints protested as he rose, the floorboards creaking beneath his bare feet. The mirror above his washbasin reflected a man he barely recognized anymore. Graying at the temples despite being only 38, lines etched deep around eyes that had witnessed too much sorrow. He splashed cold water on his face, the shock momentarily clearing the fog of last night's whiskey. 3 years ago, Clearwater had been a thriving silver mining town with saloons that never closed, a hotel that hosted dignitaries from as far as Denver, and a future as bright as the ore pulled from its mountains. The main street had bustled with commerce, laughter spilled from the dance hall every night, and the church bell rang proudly each Sunday. Then came the cave-in that killed 27 men, including Elijah's younger brother Thomas. The Silver Peak Mining Company abandoned operations overnight, leaving the town to slowly wither like a plant deprived of water. Now Elijah wore his tarnished star like a penance, policing a ghost town that refused to acknowledge its own death. Mounting his chestnut mare without bothering to saddle it, Elijah rode toward the gunfire, the cool morning air clearing his head with each passing moment. His horse, Penny, knew the terrain as well as he did, navigating the rocky path with sure footing. Over the ridge, he found a prison wagon under attack. 2 guards already lay dead in the dust, their blood darkening the parched earth, and a third exchanged gunfire from behind a wheel as 5 bandits circled like vultures, whooping with the thrill of violence. Elijah drew his peacemaker and fired with deadly precision honed from years of enforcing law in a lawless territory. 2 bandits fell immediately, one clutching his chest in surprise before crumpling to the ground, the other thrown from his horse with the impact of Elijah's bullet. The others, realizing a lawman had arrived, retreated into the scrubland, firing wildly as they disappeared into the sage and juniper. "Much obliged, Sheriff," the surviving guard gasped, clutching a bleeding arm where a bullet had torn through muscle. His uniform, once crisp blue, was now stained with dust and blood. "Those devils ambushed us at first light, came out of nowhere." "What's so valuable you're getting ambushed in my county?" Elijah demanded, reloading his revolver with practiced efficiency. Bandits rarely attacked prison wagons. The risk outweighed the reward unless something valuable was being transported. The guard grimaced as he tightened a makeshift bandage. Just one prisoner, woman from the territorial prison, being transferred to stand trial for murder in Fort Collins. He nodded toward the wagon. "Wouldn't think she was worth the trouble, but someone clearly wants her free or dead." Elijah approached the iron-barred wagon and peered inside. A woman sat on the wooden bench, remarkably composed despite the violence that had erupted around her. Her hands were shackled, her dark hair falling in waves around a face that might have been beautiful, if not for the bruise darkening one cheek, and the hollow look of someone who had seen the worst of humanity. Her eyes, a striking amber color, met his without fear or hope, just watchful assessment, like a wild animal calculating its chances. "She don't speak," the guard offered, coming to stand beside Elijah. "Mute, they say, but dangerous all the same. Killed a man with a piano wire at the Silver Dollar in Denver. Garroted him right in his private room while he was counting the night's earnings." "What's her name?" Elijah asked, unable to look away from those amber eyes that seemed to see right through him. "Papers say Sophia Reeves. Was some kind of famous singer before she lost her voice. Ironic, ain't it? Songbird who can't sing anymore." Elijah assessed the situation with the pragmatism of a frontier lawman. The guard wouldn't survive the journey to Fort Collins with that arm wound, and the prisoner couldn't be left unattended with bandits still in the territory. With a sigh that carried the weight of his badge, Elijah made the decision that would change everything. "I'll take her to Clearwater until we can arrange proper transport. Get yourself to Doc Miller in town. He ain't much, but he can patch that arm well enough to keep you from bleeding out." Clearwater greeted them with the same dusty indifference it showed everything these days. The main street, once bustling with miners and merchants, now stood nearly empty. Tumbleweeds occasionally skittering across boardwalks where ladies in fine dresses once promenaded. The Grand Hotel's windows were boarded up, its once elegant facade faded and peeling. The assay office had become a storage shed. Only the saloon showed signs of life, though its patrons were men who drank to forget rather than celebrate. A few curious faces peered from doorways as Elijah led his prisoner down the street. Mrs. Holloway, the postmistress who stubbornly maintained her position despite having almost no mail to distribute, crossed to the other side rather than pass near the shackled woman. Old Pete Jenkins, who'd lost both sons in the cave-in, spat in the dirt as they passed. Elijah locked Sophia in the jail's single cell and settled behind his desk, watching her. She explored her confinement methodically, testing the bars, examining the cot with its thin mattress, running her fingers along the stone wall, all without making a sound. There was something graceful about her movements, a remnant, perhaps, of her days performing on stage. "You really can't speak?" he asked, breaking the silence that had stretched between them. She turned, considering him, then shook her head slowly, one hand rising to touch her throat briefly. "But you understand me." A nod, those amber eyes never leaving his face. "Did you kill that man?" Her expression changed subtly, not guilt or defiance, but something more complex, a shadow of old pain mixed with grim satisfaction. She held up her shackled hands, bringing them together, then pulling them apart in a gesture he couldn't interpret. "I don't understand sign language, ma'am." Frustration flickered across her face. She pointed to his desk, then mimicked writing with her fingers. Reluctantly, Elijah provided paper and pencil through the bars. Her handwriting was elegant, educated, at odds with her prisoner status and the violent crime she'd allegedly committed. "I killed him. He deserved it. I am not sorry." "That's not for you to decide," Elijah said, taking back the paper. "The law decides who deserves punishment." She wrote again, her pencil moving swiftly. "Does it? Did the law save those miners? Did it punish the Silver Peak Company?" Elijah felt like she'd struck him. "How do you know about that?" "Everyone knows about Clearwater, the town that died standing up." The accuracy of her assessment unsettled him. He locked the cell door and retreated to his desk, pouring himself a measure of whiskey from the bottle he kept in the bottom drawer. He didn't drink it, though, just stared at the amber liquid that matched the color of her knowing eyes. Over the next days, a strange routine developed. Elijah would bring Sophia meals from the boarding house where Mrs. Finch still cooked for the handful of residents who remained in Clearwater. He'd sit at his desk while she ate, and they would communicate. He speaking aloud, she writing her responses on the paper he provided. He learned she had been a celebrated singer at high-end establishments throughout the territory, known for ballads that could bring tears to the eyes of even the most hardened men. She'd lost her voice after diphtheria 2 years ago, the illness ravaging her vocal cords beyond repair. The man she killed had been her manager, who'd continued collecting performance fees while keeping her essentially prisoner after her voice failed, forcing her to play piano while other women sang, claiming she owed him for years of investment in her career. So it was revenge. Elijah concluded after piecing together her story over several conversations. "Justice," she wrote, underlining the word twice. "There's a difference." Elijah wasn't so sure. The line between justice and vengeance seemed as thin as the paper she wrote upon. On the 4th day, while Elijah sorted through wanted posters that had accumulated in his absence, Sophia wrote, "This town needs music again." Elijah laughed bitterly. "This town needs a proper burial. It's been dying for 3 years." "No, it needs to remember it's alive." That evening, Elijah was startled by an unfamiliar sound, piano music drifting from the abandoned hotel. Curious and slightly alarmed, he crossed the street to investigate. He found Reverend Hayes playing the dusty grand piano in the lobby, while several townspeople gathered around. The Reverend's fingers were clumsy but enthusiastic as they picked out the tune to amazing grace. "Sheriff, found the old girl still mostly in tune?" Hayes called when he spotted Elijah. "Thought we might have a little gathering Saturday night, like old times." "What brought this on?" Elijah asked, suspicious of the sudden revival of community spirit. "That prisoner of yours," the Reverend admitted. She wrote me a note when I brought her Sunday prayer book, said music heals broken places. Got me thinking about how long it's been since this town had any healing. The piano gathering became the talk of Clearwater. People cleaned the hotel lobby, sweeping away years of dust and neglect. Women brought food, and men contributed whiskey from private stashes. Someone found instruments long packed away, a fiddle with only 3 strings, a tarnished trumpet, a banjo missing 1 peg. Elijah watched with bewilderment as the town stirred like a hibernating animal sensing spring. "You're doing?" he asked Sophia that night, leaning against the bars of her cell. She shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. Music remembers what people forget. Saturday night arrived with an energy Clearwater hadn't felt in years. Nearly everyone attended, even old Pete Jenkins, who'd sworn never to celebrate anything again after losing his sons. The Reverend played piano, others joined with guitars, harmonicas, even a dusty violin rescued from someone's attic. People sang songs half-remembered from happier times. Children, who rarely had reason to laugh anymore, danced in circles. For a few hours, Clearwater remembered it was more than a dying mining town. It was a community of people who had chosen each other, bound by more than just proximity to a played-out silver vein. Elijah brought Sophia, still shackled but permitted to attend under his supervision. She sat quietly in a corner, watching with evident satisfaction as the townspeople rediscovered joy they'd thought buried with their dead. When the music faltered, she would write suggestions that Elijah relayed to the musicians. Near midnight, during a lull, Sophia approached the piano. The room fell silent, wary of the convicted murderess in their midst. She gestured for paper and wrote something that the Reverend read aloud. "Miss Reeves suggests we sing Home on the Range. Says it's a song about belonging to this land, and we all understand that feeling." Someone started the melody, others joined, and soon the room filled with the bittersweet harmony of voices united in song. Elijah watched Sophia close her eyes, her body swaying slightly to the music she couldn't produce but clearly felt deeply. Her face transformed, the hardness melting away to reveal the woman she must have been before tragedy altered her path. In that moment, something shifted in Clearwater. And in Elijah. He recognized that the town wasn't dead, merely wounded. And wounds, with proper care, could heal. The next morning, a telegram arrived from Fort Collins. The charges against Sophia Reeves had been reviewed and reduced from murder to manslaughter. With time served, she would face only 2 more years' imprisonment. Elijah found himself strangely disappointed. He'd grown accustomed to their silent conversations, to her challenging perspectives, to the way she saw possibility where he saw only endings. The jail would feel emptier without her presence. "You'll be transferred tomorrow," he told her, sliding the telegram through the bars. "Fort Collins is sending proper escorts." She nodded, unsurprised, and wrote, "What will happen to Clearwater?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but something has started here. People are talking about reopening the eastern shaft. It was always safer than the one that collapsed. There's talk of a proper music hall." "Good. This place deserves a second chance." "So do you," Elijah said suddenly, surprising himself with the sentiment. "When your sentence is done, you'd be welcome back here." Her smile was worth the impropriety of his offer, lighting her face with a warmth he hadn't seen before. "I'll come back on one condition," she wrote, her pencil hesitating before continuing. "That you're still sheriff and sober." "That's 2 conditions," he pointed out, a smile tugging at his own lips. "I'm a convicted criminal. I don't play fair." The Fort Collins escorts arrived the next day, 2 stern-faced deputies who treated Sophia with professional detachment. As they prepared to depart, Sophia handed Elijah a final note, folded carefully and pressed into his palm like a secret. "The voice isn't just in the throat. It's in the actions." Clearwater found its voice again. "So will I. So will you." He watched the prison wagon disappear over the ridge, her words echoing in his mind long after the dust had settled. 2 years passed. Clearwater didn't become a boomtown again, but it stabilized. The eastern mine shaft reopened with modern safety measures, employing 15 men. The hotel was renovated, its lobby now serving as a community gathering place. A small music hall was established in what had once been the assay office, hosting weekly performances that drew visitors from neighboring settlements. The church bell rang regularly again, calling people to worship and to mark the passing of time. Elijah remained sheriff, sober and engaged with the town's revival. He kept Sophia's notes in his desk drawer, rereading them when doubts crept in or when the whiskey bottle called to him. Her words had become a kind of talisman, a reminder that second chances were possible. On a spring morning much like the one when he'd first encountered the prison wagon, Elijah noticed a stagecoach arriving. A single passenger disembarked, a woman in a blue traveling dress carrying a small valise. The sun caught in her dark hair, now streaked with a few strands of silver. Sophia Reeves stood in the sunlight, free and transformed. The hollow look was gone from her eyes, replaced by a quiet confidence. When she saw him waiting, her face lit with a smile that needed no words. "Welcome back to Clearwater," Elijah said, his voice rough with emotion he didn't try to hide. She reached for his hand and squeezed it once, her touch warm and sure. Then, to his astonishment, she spoke, her voice raspy and unpracticed but unmistakably real. "I found my voice again," she said, the words emerging slowly but clearly. "Just as you found yours." As they walked together through the reawakened town, past the music hall where a poster announced Miss Sophia Reeves' piano recital Saturday evening, Elijah realized some prisons weren't built of iron bars, but of grief and regret. And sometimes the key to freedom was as simple and as powerful as a song remembered, a voice reclaimed, and a second chance embraced. The town that had died standing up was learning to dance again, and in its revival, Elijah and Sophia found their own redemption. Note by note, word by word, day by day.